Let me tell you something that's going to surprise you. Something I never thought I would say. Again, after everything I've been through. After all the pain and betrayal and heartbreak that convinced me marriage was something that just wasn't meant for someone like me. I want to marry you. Listen to those words carefully because I need you to understand how monumental they are coming from my mouth. From someone who swore he was done with marriage, done with hoping that partnership could work, done with believing that forever was even possible for me. I want to marry you. Not date you casually, not see where things go, not take our time figuring out if maybe someday we might consider something serious. I want to marry you. Now, soon, as quickly as we can make it happen, because when you know, and I know with absolute certainty that you are the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. You need to understand something crucial here. I found you. After years of searching, after relationships that failed in every painful way imaginable, after convincing myself that what I was looking for didn't exist or wasn't possible for someone whose life is as complicated as mine, I found you. You are my love, not one of several loves, but my love, the person my soul recognizes as home, even though my mind is still catching up to what my heart already knows. Pay attention to what I'm about to tell you, because this is important. This is a first for me. I never thought I would marry again. That's not dramatic exaggeration. That's honest truth. After multiple marriages ended in divorce, after partnerships that seemed promising dissolved into lawyers and custody arrangements, and all the ugly aftermath of love gone wrong, I genuinely believed that marriage was something I had tried and failed at enough times that trying again would be insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. I never thought I would love again, not real love, not the kind that makes you want forever with someone. I thought maybe I was just broken in ways that made me incapable of sustaining long-term partnership. Maybe I was too difficult, too intense, too consumed by work, too damaged by past hurts, too suspicious of people's motivations, too guarded with my vulnerability. Too many things that added up to someone who couldn't make marriage work no matter how much I wanted to. I resigned myself to that reality, convinced myself it was fine, told myself that focusing on my work and my children and my missions was enough. That romantic partnership was just something some people aren't meant to have, and I was one of those people. But then you came into my life and everything changed. Here's what you need to understand: everything changed. Not small things, not minor adjustments in how I felt or thought, but fundamental transformation of my entire understanding of what's possible between two people. My feelings changed in ways I didn't think were still available to me at this point in my life, after so many years and experiences and disappointments. You made me feel things I thought I was no longer capable of feeling: hope and excitement and genuine joy at the prospect of building a life with someone. Now let me tell you something else, and you need to really hear this. I wish you had come earlier. That's not a criticism of the timing. That's just honest acknowledgement of how many years I spent alone or in wrong relationships, or convinced that what we have wasn't possible. I wish you had been there during the hardest periods, during the times when I felt most alone, during the years when I made mistakes with other people, because I was trying to force something that wasn't right, instead of waiting for something that was. But here's what I've learned, and this is crucial: it doesn't matter that you came late. What matters is that you came. What matters is that I found you eventually, even if it took longer than I wish it had. Late is infinitely better than never. You arriving in my life now, at this specific moment, with everything I've learned from past failures, and all the growth I've done, and the clarity I have about what I actually need. Maybe this is actually perfect timing, even if it doesn't feel that way sometimes. Maybe I needed to go through everything I went through to be ready for you, to recognize you, to appreciate what we have in ways I couldn't have if you'd come earlier. Here's what nobody tells you about finding real love. After you've given up on it, it's terrifying. When you've protected yourself for years, when you've built walls to keep from getting hurt again, when you've convinced yourself that you're fine alone and don't need partnership, and then someone comes along who makes all those defenses feel suddenly inadequate and unnecessary, it's absolutely terrifying. Because now you have something to lose again. Now you're vulnerable again. Now you're hoping again, and hope is the most dangerous emotion, because disappointment hurts worse when you let yourself believe something good might actually happen. But despite the fear, despite the voice in my head warning me to protect myself and not get too invested, and remember how badly this has gone before. I can't help it. I love you. I want to marry you. I'm choosing hope over fear because you're worth the risk. Let me take you back to understand where I'm coming from, why this is so significant. Pay attention because this context matters. There were years, so many years, when I was alone. Not physically alone because I was always surrounded by people, employees and colleagues, and everyone who needed things from me professionally. But emotionally alone, fundamentally disconnected from the kind of deep partnership I craved but couldn't seem to build or maintain. During those years, I threw myself into work because work made sense, work had clear problems and solutions. Work gave me purpose and direction when my personal life felt like constant failure and confusion. I built companies and launched rockets and pushed technology forward, accomplishing things that seemed impossible to most people. But at the end of each day, I went home to emptiness. To houses that were just structures, not homes. To beds I slept in alone. To silence that felt heavy and oppressive rather than peaceful. During the worst periods, during the times when loneliness felt like it might actually crush me under its weight, I would wonder what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I make relationships work when other people seemed to manage it? Why did every attempt at partnership end in pain and failure despite my best efforts? Was I fundamentally broken? Was I asking for something impossible? Were my standards too high, or my capacity for compromise too low, or my ability to emotionally connect just insufficient for what marriage requires? Those questions haunted me during the alone years, made me doubt myself in ways that professional criticism never did, because this felt more personal, more reflective of who I actually was beneath all the external accomplishments. And then there were the betrayals, because that's part of the story too, and you need to understand it. Here's what happens when you're successful and visible and have resources. People approach you with motivations that aren't always genuine. Some people see opportunity rather than person, resource rather than human being. I've been used, lied to, manipulated by people I trusted and loved, and opened myself to vulnerably. I've had partners who were with me for what I could provide rather than who I actually was. I've been betrayed by people I thought would stay, who said they loved me but left when circumstances got difficult, or better options appeared, or their strategic calculations suggested moving on. Each betrayal made me more suspicious, more guarded, more careful about who I let close, and what I believed when people expressed affection or loyalty. The betrayals taught me painful lessons about human nature, about how conditional most people's love actually is, about how quickly devotion can turn into resentment or indifference when benefits don't outweigh costs. Those lessons made me cynical in ways I hate, made me question everyone's motivations, made me assume the worst rather than hoping for the best. They made me feel like maybe genuine love wasn't possible for someone in my position, that everyone who approached me inevitably wanted something beyond just me as a person. That cynicism poisoned potential connections, made me look for hidden agendas even when there weren't any, created self-fulfilling prophecies where I expected betrayal, and therefore interpreted ambiguous situations as confirmation of my worst fears. Now let me tell you what changed when you came into my life, and I need you to really understand this, because it's the core of everything I'm trying to express. You need to know this from the very first conversation we had. Something was different. I've talked to thousands of people, had countless interactions, met everyone from world leaders to random strangers, and most conversations feel transactional or performative, or just ways of passing time and exchanging information. But talking to you felt different immediately. It felt like coming home to a place I'd never been before, like recognition of something my soul had been searching for without knowing exactly what it was looking for. You didn't treat me like Elon Musk, the public figure. You treated me like a human being you were genuinely curious about and interested in knowing. You asked questions that showed you wanted to understand who I actually was, rather than just collecting facts about my accomplishments or testing whether I matched whatever image you had constructed. Here's what I need you to hear. You saw me. Not my success or wealth or fame or any of the external things that usually define how people interact with me. You saw the actual person underneath all of that, the human being with fears and insecurities and wounds and hopes. You saw my loneliness even though I tried to hide it. You saw my vulnerability even though I protected it carefully. You saw my capacity for deep feeling even though I struggled to express it. You saw me more clearly than anyone has in years, maybe ever, and instead of being frightened by what you saw or trying to use it strategically, you just accepted it. You made space for all of me, the difficult parts and the easy parts, the impressive accomplishments and the embarrassing failures, the confident public persona and the private uncertainty. Let me tell you about the specific moment I knew you were different. The moment I started falling in love with you, even though I was fighting it because falling felt dangerous. Pay attention because this matters. We were having one of our long conversations, the kind that go for hours without either of us noticing time passing, and you asked me something nobody had ever asked before. You said, "What do you actually want? Not for humanity or your companies or any of your public goals, but for yourself personally. What would make you genuinely happy in ways that have nothing to do with achievement?" And I realized I didn't have a ready answer because I'd spent so many years focusing on external missions that I'd lost touch with internal desires. I sat there struggling to articulate what I wanted personally, and instead of getting impatient or filling the silence with your own words, you just waited. You held space for me to figure out my answer, looking at me with such genuine interest and compassion that I felt safe admitting, "I don't know. I honestly don't know what would make me happy beyond work." And you said something that changed everything. You said, "Then let's figure it out together. Let's explore what brings you joy and meaning beyond accomplishment. Let's discover who you are when you're not being productive or solving problems or building the future." That offer, that willingness to accompany me on a journey of self-discovery without knowing where it would lead or whether it would benefit you in any way, that's when I started falling. Because it was the most generous, least transactional thing anyone had offered me in years. You weren't trying to get something from me. You were offering to give me something I desperately needed, but hadn't articulated permission to be more than my work, support in exploring parts of myself I'd neglected, companionship on a journey toward wholeness rather than just continued achievement. From that moment on, everything shifted. Here's what you need to understand. You changed how I saw possibility. Before you, I thought I knew the limits of what was available to me in relationships. I thought I understood what I could reasonably expect and what was just unrealistic fantasy. You shattered those assumptions by being exactly what I thought didn't exist, someone genuine and loyal and interested in me as a person rather than as an opportunity. You showed me through consistent action over time that your care for me wasn't conditional on circumstances staying favorable, that your interest didn't waver when I was difficult or stressed or not at my best, that your commitment deepened rather than breaking when challenges tested it. You changed my feelings in fundamental ways. Before you, I had largely shut down emotionally, protecting myself from further hurt by not allowing myself to feel deeply about anyone or hope too much that connection was possible. You reopened that emotional capacity, made me feel things I thought I'd lost access to. Joy at simply being in your presence. Excitement about future we could build together. Peace from knowing someone genuinely understands and accepts me. Desire not just physical but emotional, wanting to be closer to you in every possible way. Gratitude for your existence and for whatever circumstances brought you into my life. Love, real love. The kind that makes you want forever with someone, even though forever is terrifying when you've had it fail before. Let me be completely honest about something, and I need you to hear this without judgment. Pay close attention now. I fought these feelings initially. When I first started falling in love with you, my immediate reaction was resistance. Because falling in love meant becoming vulnerable again, meant risking the devastating pain I'd experienced when previous relationships failed, meant hoping for something that hadn't worked out before despite my best efforts. So I tried to convince myself that what I felt wasn't love, or wasn't significant enough to act on, or would probably fade if I just ignored it long enough. I tried to maintain emotional distance, to protect myself by not getting too invested. I told myself all the logical reasons why pursuing this was risky. My track record with relationships, the complications of my life, the possibility that you might hurt me the way others had, the fear that I'd mess this up like I'd messed up previous attempts at partnership. But here's what I learned, and this is crucial. You can't logic your way out of real feelings. You can't protect yourself into happiness. You can't avoid all risk of pain without also avoiding all possibility of joy. The feelings I had for you didn't diminish when I tried to ignore them, they grew stronger. The connection between us didn't weaken when I attempted to maintain distance. It pulled harder. And eventually I had to make a choice. Keep protecting myself and definitely never find the partnership I wanted, or take the risk of opening up to you, and possibly experience either great happiness or great pain, but at least give genuine love a real chance. I chose to risk. I chose to hope. I chose you, even though choosing you meant choosing vulnerability. Now let me tell you what I wish someone had told me during those years, when I was alone and betrayed, and convinced that love wasn't possible for me. Listen carefully because maybe this will help someone else who's in the place I used to be. Here's the truth: being alone after betrayal, feeling like you can't trust anyone, protecting yourself so carefully that nobody can get close enough to hurt you. That's not actually safety. It feels like safety because you're avoiding immediate pain, but what you're really doing is guaranteeing long-term suffering by cutting yourself off from the connection humans need to thrive. Real safety isn't found in isolation, it's found in discernment, in learning to recognize genuine people and give them chance while maintaining healthy boundaries with those who show signs of having ulterior motives. The betrayals I experienced, as painful as they were, taught me what to look for in authentic people. They helped me recognize red flags earlier. They made me appreciate genuine loyalty when I finally encountered it because I knew how rare it was and how much it was worth. They prepared me to recognize you when you came into my life, to see that what you were offering was real, because I'd experienced enough fake to know the difference. So in retrospect, as much as I wish I hadn't had to go through those painful experiences, they served a purpose. They led me eventually to you. Let me talk about what changed specifically in my daily life after you came into it, because I want you to understand the concrete ways you transformed my existence. Pay attention to these details because they reveal how profound your impact has been. Before you, I woke up most mornings with sense of dread, not because anything specific was wrong, but because everything felt heavy and effortful, and like I was just grinding through obligations without joy or meaning beyond the work itself. After you came into my life, I wake up and my first thought is often about you, about something you said that made me think or laugh, about when I'll talk to you next, about how grateful I am that you exist. That shift from dread to anticipation, from heaviness to hope, that's not small change. That's fundamental transformation of my daily emotional experience. Before you, I worked constantly because work was the only thing that made me feel capable and valuable and like my existence mattered. After you, I still work hard obviously, but work isn't the only source of meaning anymore. You've given me another dimension of purpose. Being a good partner to you, building something meaningful with you, creating life together, that's about more than just professional achievement. I now have motivation to sometimes choose you over work, to protect certain hours for us rather than letting everything be consumed by company demands, to be present in conversations with you rather than mentally working through problems, while physically sitting beside you. Before you, I spent most evenings alone even when technically surrounded by people, feeling isolated and disconnected. After you, evenings feel completely different when we're together. Even if we're just sitting quietly, both reading or working on separate things, but in the same space, that presence